Hi and welcome to a new video on Denmark. In this video I have made some additions to my Danish collection. Not a whole lot more, but we will be going through Danish history from a bit from the 1700s until the 1900s. Also, I excuse myself, I have had a cold, so excuse my voice. Starting off, we have the pre-Krone currency of the riksdaler. This coin over here is a 1782, at least that's what it's supposed to say. A 2 shilling danske, 2 Danish shillings, from, I suppose, Christian the 7th, King of Denmark, Norway, and those German principalities that were also in a union with Denmark at the time. It doesn't look like it, but it's supposed to be a billion lesser pure silver coin, only about 30% silver. It mostly looks like a copper coin though, so I'm not actually sure there being silver in this one. Might be a fake coin, but regardless, it's one that I have bought some time ago. It's very complicated. The riksdaler at this time in the 1700s was divided into there were two kinds of currencies, but we can say they were at least divided into 96 shillings, possibly even more, but that's not the focus on this video, and I only have this one coin, so I will not go into that any further. But what I am sure of though is that in the 1800s we had the introduction of another riksdaler, which was subdivided into shilling riksmönt, which it's almost the smallest denomination, because there's also a half shilling riksmönt, so it's the second smallest coin. This one from 1863, Frederick the 7th. So a riksdaler at this time was divided into 96 of these coins, which would equal 40, a half riksdaler would equal 48 shillings, a fourth 24 shillings, 1/6 would be 16 shillings, and 1/3 would be 32 shillings. the reason I mentioned 16 shillings before 32 is because I actually have 16 shilling riksmynt right over here. This is 1/6 of a Danish 1800s riksdaler. So 6 of these would make 1 riksdaler. And this is a nice silver coin from, shall we see the exact year? This looks like 1857 with Frederick the 7th. Looks like Latin. Fredericcus the 7th. However you pronounce 7 in Latin. So this is actually I'm sure of, because I'm not sure in the other one, but the other one is the oldest Danish silver coin that I own. So the double of these 32 would be 1/3 of a riksdaler. But enough about that. I did have, and it's featured in a previous video. I have sold it off though, but I will probably regain another one in the future. But I shall paste into a picture of Denmark's new currency that would be introduced in 1875 with the Scandinavian Monetary Union. It's the Krone, and this picture in particular is the 2 Krone coin, which was weighed 15 grams, of which was 12 grams of silver. And I hope I got that right, because otherwise I will paste a text on the screen right now. Yeah, so in 1875 we planted the seed of the rest of these coins, including that one banknote of 1 krona right over there. Sweden and Denmark agreed to a monetary union where they would each tie their currency to the gold standard and to each other by having the currency, the krone or the krona, be of equal values in relation to gold, and also having their coins being the same size and the same metals. So the previously shown krona, I will have it on screen right now again, had its equals in Sweden. Later, some years later, also Norway, which also entered this monetary union. The monetary union was in effect until World War I, when the gold standard collapsed due to the world situation. The gold standard was later re-established in 1924, although the Scandinavian currencies were no longer interchangeable. The gold standard was later again abandoned in 1931 during the Great Depression. But with that out of the way, we have the new subdivision of the Krone coins over here, because the riksdaler was not a decimal currency. like I said, there were 96 shillings on a riksdaler, which was better than Sweden, because 96 to 100, we are almost there. In Sweden, though, the Swedish riksdaler was subdivided into 48 shillings. So not quite decimal. So the öre, as it was in Sweden and later Norway, was introduced as the subdivision of the krone. 100 öre for every krone. So right over here we have a 5 öre coin from 1939, looking very good. This one with the King of Denmark and just an X. I believe it's Christian the 10th of Denmark, their king during both World War I and World War II. And Denmark and Norway at this time, for some reason, had a fascination with having holes in their currency. Don't ask me why. Design choice. We also have these later issues. This one's worth more, actually. These ones are emergency issues during World War II, for which Denmark was under German occupation. So this is in 1942. Denmark and Norway was invaded in 1940, and the occupation would last until the surrender of Germany in 1945. Denmark, unlike Norway, had a sort of semi-independence under occupation, in that they, for several years, would be allowed to keep their government as long as they did what Germany said, and their king, unlike Norway, which had continued to resist. And the other one is the same, but I believe it's just another year. This one is indeed in 1945. Although that looks modified, but it could be just the way they're looking. So that's the 5 öre coins. Before moving on, we have also this tiny coin right over here. It's a 1 öre coin. This one as old as 1909. We can also see that it says Kongeriget Danmark, the Kingdom of Denmark. On the other side we have the king's monogram. And don't ask me which king this is, because it seems like it's another Fredrik. Like every other king in Denmark is either a Fredrik or a Christian. Frederick or Christian. For real. We also have, and I shall say that, as in Norway, the Danish coins, at least 10 öre and above, as well as the kronas, were in silver, but this stopped in 1918. Although the gold standard had already been dropped, they also stopped putting silver in the coins and just started using either bronze, copper, nickel, or even aluminium copper for that matter, or aluminium bronze perhaps it is. So this 25 öre you see right here, although it's pretty semi-old from the 1920s, 1924 to be specific, it's not made out of silver, although it has a silver looking color. No, it's just fake silver after, from when they're starting putting silver out of use. Now these other coins you can see right here, the design is exactly the same, although you can see that the material used differs, at least compared with the first one. It's because these ones are also emergency is perhaps the wrong name, occupation coins of the German occupation during World War II. Now this makes them rather rare, and this can be worth a bit at least, not winning the lottery, but they are rather somewhat rare at least. That first one is from 1942, this one is from 1944, and the last one is from 1945, the last year of German occupation. So I got a set, not a complete set, but at least 3 German occupation coins. What I have 1940, 1941 and 43, I would have a complete set. But I'm not sure at least also this material, they exist for every single year. I don't think so. But for when I make another occupation video, I have made one of primarily Japanese occupation currency. But if I make another video of occupation currency, this one would be featured. But moving on. Like I said, the Krone was moving away from being silver during the 20s. So here is a 1 Krone coin. The King of Denmark, Konge of Denmark, from 1931, Christian X. Not a silver coin. Neither this one from 1934. Nor this one from 1936. But before we are moving on until after the war, we also have the half Krone coin, which you see here, it's noticeably smaller, and it's also rare. And that you might wonder, why would it be rare? It's not because it's a particular year. It's the denomination itself, because as I understand it from my Danish coin book, the half Krone coins, and these were instead of 50 öre, there were no 50 öre coins at this time, but instead there were, as I said, little half krone. Half krone. Now, what happened with these coins was that during World War II they were gathered up and melted down to make 1 krone coins, as I understand it. So that means that the largest part of these coins simply do no longer exist. So these are the surviving coins, which are just a minority of all the coins there ever was. So that means any ones of these denominations is rarer. That will say they're still not impossibly rare, but they fetch for more money than they would have otherwise, a lot more than they otherwise would if they had been not melted down. Like for example a 50 öre coin from Norway no one would have batted an eye for that one's rarity, but for this one that relatively few exist, yeah, it still wasn't that expensive, but it was I mean, I can say that I got most of these for cheap because they are mass wares, but like the price of that one probably equals like these 3 and possibly even those 3, all of those 6 put together. So there's no value in these ones really. But that one, if you find a bunch of those, could be a few pennies. But moving on, we can say that they like I said, they were a 2 krone or 2 kroner silver coins in the 1800s when the krone was introduced, and I have put it up on the screen already sometimes. But this continued all the way, although non-silver, until the 1950s, I believe. So this is a 2 kroner coin from 1948 with the king. Interestingly enough, we also got a new king, by the way, Frederick the Ninth, King of Denmark. What was the interesting part? Yeah, that it actually has the king's portrait. The 1 krona does not. And for some reason this was also the case. Perhaps it was due to larger inflation in Denmark and Norway. That is perhaps the reason for just having the monogram and not the portrait of the king, unlike in Sweden. And besides that one, we have one from 1952 and 1954, but they look exactly the same on the other side. Keeping on with the 1 krona, we have this new design that was in use by 1964. Still the same king. And by, I believe, 1989, we have this dirty coin with the new Queen of Denmark, Margrethe II, Denmark's Queen. Interestingly, perhaps it's just due to the lack of space, but instead of having her named the Dronning of Denmark, the Queen of Denmark, it's Denmark's Queen. But perhaps it's just the lack of space. But yeah, she abdicated rather recently, I believe this year, or was it last year, in favor of her son, which I don't know, I don't think there have been any new coins issued for him yet. But she was queen for almost 50 years, and now in her 80s she finally had enough. And before we forget, like with Denmark and Norway and Sweden, the 1 krone was usually a coin. But in times of crisis and emergency, there would be banknotes, like here said in with a declaration in 1914 during World War One. A 1 krona banknote was issued, and this one in particular from 1918. Yeah. And the backside looks like it. Looks like this. It's a rather simple design. It would it would equal this one in the 20s, but as it says right over here, it says, I believe, forgive my translation here, most probably getting it wrong, but my guess is valid following law number 174 of the 15th of August 1914 as 1 krone in silver. So it actually says that it equals 1 krone in silver in particular. And well, usually krones could be redeemed for gold, but they couldn't be redeemed for gold any longer during World War One. It had by this point, or at least during this year, would be suspended. But the krones were still in silver and would be until 1918. So even though you couldn't exchange this one for gold, it could be exchanged for 1 krone in silver. And that would be that. Thank you for watching, and yet again, forgive me for my voice.